Hello. I'm going to say hello to every single one of you. Is that okay? My name's Mark. Welcome to the Synapse PG Q&A. Do you want to start down, introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, of course. My name is Pavel. I'm on the Synapse team, but I'm not that PM that you might think. I'm responsible for community, so thank you.
I'm Filip Popovic, program manager in Serverless SQL Pool team, actually Synapse SQL team, sorry, and my area of expertise is performance, particularly Serverless SQL Pool, obviously. So,
I'm Luke. I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft in the Synapse group. Yeah, I don't know what more to say. What? Pipelines are probably, data integration and pipelines are the main areas I deal with.
I work in the in Synapse PG. I'm a PM, and I do data warehouse and some other stuff. I'm not going to give you any detail because you'll ask me difficult questions.
I'm Stijn. I work for the Fast Track team, and I do all implementations with Azure Synapse, and I get to see all the things that we've built and try to work around it.
All right, so just a hands up. Who has seen Stijn and Filip before? But not in real life. The espresso videos. How many hands have we got? You ready? Yeah, all right. Keep your hands up. I can't look at you and everybody else. Not many. All right. So do you want to do a bit of?
Sure. We do this weekly video where we just talk about anything that's in Synapse, any performance issue, things to work around, and it's 5 to 10 minutes videos, and we just cover loads of topics. And it's together with Pavel also helps out with them, Filip, and probably Luke and Mark are coming on as well. So it's a lot of fun. We've had our first question, I see.
Have we got a question? We've got a remote caller.
What's new with serverless?
Who's going to answer that?
I wonder who.
Go on.
what's new with serverless? So, depends how recently do we speak about. I believe that the most important part would be querying delta tables that were created in a Spark. So it was long-awaited feature. Now you can create the delta tables in Synapse Spark, and you will see them in a Serverless SQL Pool.
Yep. Is that it? OK, I was just getting the espresso videos up.
Oh, we can see it.
Nice one. Look at those lovely people there. So you're all familiar with the YouTubes, aren't you, you kids? OK. All right.
We don't run our own TikTok yet.
No, yeah. That's where I draw the line.
Oh, by the way, for those in the room, we've got some Microsoft T-shirt. Can I get a woo? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can I get a woo? All right, any good questions? Get a Microsoft T-shirt. And I won't be able to throw, so these people at the front will get them. I can't throw them that far. I mean, really, they're only going to get as far as row 3. And we've got some dice. So what about a question from the room?
Andy. Sorry.
Say it. So with all this lakehouse stuff, I've seen a couple of patterns, and this is from Microsoft themselves. One is transforming the data, landing it in a data lake in an already formatted format like Delta, Parquet, etc. And then serverless is just doing some select from that data. I've also seen serverless views being used to transform the data when it's being served up into something like Power BI. What are your opinions between those two approaches, and is there one we should favour over the other?
So for the benefit...
Let's repeat the question.
Yeah, so for everybody's benefit, the question is that there's 2 patterns. I'm going to try and summarize it. 2 patterns that can happen with the lakehouse approach. So you can have a pattern where you land it into the lake, and then you transform that data, and then you are serving that data once it's transformed using serverless, like basically just doing select statements. Alternatively, what you can be doing is you can land that data into the lake and then using views within serverless, where you've got logic within that view to then be using that to serve that data to Power BI or whatever. Did I correctly capture your question, Andy? Excellent.
So before we respond, can I just get in with it depends? And now someone else can answer it properly. Has anyone got an opinion?
We can vote. We don't have to agree.
Like, that depends on the data volumes that you're working with. So if you're going to have like a very, very, very large table that you're going to do and push to Power BI with the logic inside that view, that is going to give you some trouble because you are going to make a very long query. Also, the logic that you're going to build into it, it's still SQL Server, so you still need to get your resource grants and all those things, and it needs to actually work. So the longer your query is and the more data you're working with, that's not going to be a viable option. If you're going to transform data in between with serverless views, you'll still have issues also with, it's like a tipping point that you'll get. Sometimes you'll need to move to Spark because you need to have more volume of data that you're going to work with to transform it. And otherwise, you can use serverless views basically to move between these layers. Any others?
You want to hear my opinion? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So, yes, it depends. I would say it depends mostly on not just performance topics and maybe some optimizations, but also the skills that people use and the whole combination of the services. I mean, you can feel more comfortable with SQL, purely SQL as T-SQL, right? And then you will be tempted to put views. What may come out of this is you have to put yourself in the shoes of, for example, Power BI developers who will complain on the performance of refreshes, for example, right? My point of view, if you're good to go with the lake and the zones in the lake to curate data and store in the lake, is more resilient because you will present the same set of data layers for different people and tools consuming the data. So it will be open for Databricks, whatever you have there in the environment, right?
I mean, I would probably just add, it depends how many times you're going to reuse that. Like every time you're running that view, that's obviously going to take time, probably more so than costs generally. So that might be a disadvantage. I think then the other part of it is how do you want to transform that data? So in that first scenario where you're transforming that data, coming in from the lake, you're landing it in a raw zone and then you want to enrich it through that process. I mean, if you're comfortable writing Spark, then fine, you can do that in Spark and that might give you a lot more flexibility than you get with SQL, like particularly with things like schema validation and controlling different data types. But if you're comfortable with SQL, like just true T-SQL, I don't want to kind of muddy the waters, sorry, with Spark SQL. I think like the view is often the best way. Now you can try and do the create external table as select approach to transform that data through layers using T-SQL. My personal view is that that's a subpar experience at the moment. Like that's a fault of ours. And that makes it a little bit difficult, but you can get there. It just requires you to do a lot of orchestration in a way where, like, you can't just drop the table and say, like, when I drop this table, I know that I'm dropping it from the SQL metadata database, but I also want to actually delete the underlying files, which is what almost everybody wants, and I think what would actually make that developer experience a lot better. Because otherwise you've got to have like a pipeline that orchestrates this and make sure you delete it and then you swap your views over the top of it. It gets ugly.
If it's more like, to add on that, if it's more incremental, I see like people creating an external table on a daily basis and just adding like a new partition to it and then having a view over all the partitions that I've created with the CE task.
All right, should we go to the next question? Oh, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I'm not that interested. Thanks, Andy. So I was looking at the questions, and it looks like some of the questions have scrolled off because there was a question on the list. Is that the order? Because the one about Databricks has gone off. Okay. So what is the direction of data modeling in Synapse? Can't remember the name. Database designer?
Oh, the database templates and the designer capability that exists.
Is that like, database templates, I presume?
Yeah, the lake
Well,
designer.
what is the direction?
Probably the lake designer.
Yeah, the lake designer. What is the direction?
TBC.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Don't
Great
look at
question.
me. Okay, so can we scrub that one off? So. All right.
When do you simplify the acquired
Okay, so the question is, when will Microsoft simply acquire Databricks?
What's a Databricks?
It's a question a little bit above probably most of our pay grades, I would say. Hope that's not being recorded.
Yeah, should we pretend we didn't get that one? Okay.
Hang on. What I would say is that like Azure Databricks is fully supported as part of in Azure. There's a lot of integration work that goes on. Obviously, there can be tension between different groups within Microsoft, but that's nothing new. Like as a company, we often have different competing products or different competing solutions. So I don't think it's not. I don't think there's like one. Like there's a lot of optionality, and that's okay.
Cut the mic before he says too much.
I think you could probably add Stijn from the perspective of the field and customers that often the winning combination is a combination of those two, right?
I see a lot of hybrid models like Databricks and Synapse together.
So, yeah. And what's the problem with having a nice bit of competition? That makes both of them better.
Yeah.
Monopolies are never great. Okay, what?
And we've got some
follow-up questions.
Oh, yeah, human questions.
Have questions.
There was an alliance announced last June, do we know it?
Yes.
With literally no content on it, on what it did mean, or what you would be doing together.
Is this the alliance with Databricks, or the alliance, or the Microsoft Intelligence Data Platform announcement more broadly?
No, it was alliance with Databricks. Part of this alignment, I believe, as far as I understood it, just keep in mind, I'm reading this announcement just as you, maybe a bit more internally, was to make sure that there's going to be a kind of integration between our governance systems, like the Unity Catalog and Purview. That was one of the parts. I have no full picture on what were the other bullet points of this agreement, but. Yeah, we still have this, big partnership with Databricks. I believe it's the only one first-party external service in Azure for data.
All right. Any more questions from the room? Go on. Shout. Go on, pick one. Pick one, Stijn.
You can pick one.
Okay. Your hand went up at second row from the back. So you. Yeah.
So I will repeat the question, and then someone else can answer it. So the question is that Azure Databricks provides a really rich experience for data science and ML use cases. Clients are wanting a consistent experience across data engineering and data science, so want that consistent experience within Synapse. What plans are there to improve that experience as it stands at the moment within Synapse Spark? Did I correctly cap? Excellent. So who would like to take that question?
You did a video.
I did a video on, so you have the Synapse ML module. So that's basically being worked on constantly to improve and to actually allow you to do that ML work through Synapse. But that's as far as I know on what the integration is at this point in time. And also there's like cluster sharing between AutoML and Spark, Synapse Spark. But like the GPT stuff that's in there also is inside the Spark engine. You can have Synapse ML to trigger that and all those things. So we're making it easier on that side, but I think that's the thing that we're trying to do with it. So like getting Synapse ML to cover that topic for you.
So if you're not familiar with Synapse ML, we are missing a link, aka.ms/spark. Easy as that. And you should find all the details, including samples, documentation, and also do not miss the videos from Mark Hamilton and also Stijn and Thomas.
Yeah, with Thomas Kostus. He's a Belgian CSA. He works a lot with that stuff.
So to make the long story short, Synapse ML is all about bringing integration with Microsoft services, including the newest Azure OpenAI, and external frameworks like MLflow, for example, into Synapse, right? So we are doing something for making the experience not just Microsoft-based, but also open source-based.
Okay, next one. Yeah.
So what would be a high-speed path for data? And to elaborate on the question a little bit, the dimension things, but more the sales data itself and all the things that you can do.
So basically, what's the fastest way to get your operational reporting based upon your sales data that's coming in? So it depends a little bit on the sources that you have. So if you've got SQL sources, you now got Synapse Link. If it's coming from Dynamics, you've got Dataverse, which has an integration, which can then be used to do your operational reporting. But it depends, of course, on the source that you have. For example, if you want to do some CDC, there's a SAP CDC connector as well, where you can also connect upon, but not all sources are supporting this at this point in time. So that's basically for your operational reporting. You can use Serverless SQL Pool or dedicated SQL Pools that basically have a link up to. So for example, for the SQL Server 2022, the link is to dedicated SQL Pools, and then Dataverse is for...
works in serverless.
Serverless, yeah.
But you have to be mindful of like the hourly snapshot. I mean, I'm not sure there's you can use those technologies to create a solution, but sometimes also it's about critically evaluating whether running that real-time reporting through your analytics pipeline is actually necessary. If it's, say, sales data from a sales system, you can directly connect Power BI to Dataverse. And that, if say, for example, it's
Can you
CRM.
maybe bring some examples of specific questions or reports that you can?
I can elaborate. So we have a huge business central solution on-prem. We have 50 companies within that, so huge number of tables. So the management, they want to see, all the sales that are coming in all the time, but it also helps our credit department evaluating the customers, so they really have up-to-date data when they start connecting to customers.
If that's on-prem, is it based on SQL Server, maybe?
So could you just
Hey,
repeat
can you
that
repeat
part
the
of the
question?
question?
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question was how to perform the real-time analytics for retail, am I correct?
Business Central.
Business Central.
Business Central as an on-prem system that combines data coming from 50 companies or so. So I would be tempted to say that some kind of replication of the underlying database would help here for reporting purposes. That's something that you might come up with even now. So I'm not sure. I can't remember the exact version of SQL that support pretty much everything we have for reporting in the cloud. So I'm pretty sure that you will probably not go with Synapse Link. It's not 2022. But you may be good to go with some cloud replicas, right? So that's one of the options that tempts me, because from there, from Azure SQL, you would have the path to the Synapse Link that would bring the data into dedicated SQL Pool database. And then you can present this data straight to whatever reporting you have.
Yep. All right. Any other questions in the room? There were some more hands up before. Oh, let's go. Your hand was up.
How is the experience for Spark? So if you have, for example, pipelines where you load transformations with different notebooks. And as of now, it is, in my knowledge, every notebook starts an own session with the cluster.
Yeah.
And that means that if you are not aware of this, then you will have to wait for each single notebook to start the cluster. Is there something thought about that might change?
Well, I was talking to someone who's put their own solution in, who's also sitting in the room.
Maybe repeat the question first.
So,
Okay.
so the question is, if you've got multiple notebooks where you're transforming that data, like Spark notebooks, and you daisy chain them together in pipelines, or you try and run them in pipelines, each single activity gets a new session, and therefore you experience the session startup time. There are a couple of ways to solve it. The main way to solve it, which we've documented, is within one notebook, you call another notebook. The problem with it is it's really hard then to diagnose failures, because if one of those notebooks within another notebook fails, you've then got to rerun that entire activity. That potentially is costly. It's also just really frustrating to manage. The ability to hot reuse clusters is certainly something that is an often asked feature. I think is probably what I am allowed to say.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else in the room? Oh, that the hand.
Yes, so
So question when the package support will arrive to Visual Studio, right?
Yeah, to do schema compare.
Or schema compare.
For schema compare, okay.
Do you know?
No, unfortunately, I don't. But yeah, I will get back to you offline.
Obviously, you can work around some of that. All right. There's a bit of...
We've got
The online people are getting all techy.
there was one more hand in here, and then we'll go to some of the online
Yeah,
questions.
there might be
Okay?
some workarounds because you can now, we've just released the ability to extract the DAC pack out of serverless. You can then load it into Azure Data Studio and just compare that DAC pack with another DAC pack. It's not great, but it will give you what you want. Did you want to do one more question in the room?
There's one other person who's
Yeah.
had their hand up for a while.
Right now, notebooks, they only support IPY and B formats. Are there any roadmaps to support computer notebooks, Databricks, DBC, or similar?
So the question is that notebooks currently only support IPYNB format. Is there plans to support other notebook types? I am not
I'm not
aware.
sure. It is often requested.
So I would say the direction is yes, for sure, because you mentioned the open source stuff. So the first step probably was when we introduced compatibility with IPython for notebooks. So that's September 1. I think we are heading towards this direction. Not sure in 100% and not have a date for you for that. What was the second part of the question?
No, it's only one part.
Was just
Will it be
sorry.
supported?
Yeah, so no answer about when, but the direction seems to be that. I mean, we see more and more, compatibility with open source stuff.
Right. So we'll do some questions from online. Any plans to improve support for open table formats other than Delta, specifically Hoodie or Iceberg? Ooh.
support for Hoodie and Iceberg.
Philip wants to answer that.
Do we move on?
We are evaluating the options, but unfortunately, no any information to share at this moment.
Okay.
What makes you unhappy with Delta?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Pavel.
So I think this is a Luke question.
Just comment on that. Hoodie has a lot of features and Delta in terms of support for foreign keys and so on.
Okay,
So that's the reason.
that's a fair statement. Thanks.
So repeating that, because Hoodie has support for foreign keys and all those
Yeah.
things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, richer features.
Schema evolution as well is a good reason as well. Yeah.
Right.
I think the next question's for me.
Yep. When will Synapse get the new Data Factory CI/CD approach available in Azure DevOps?
I'm not aware that that's coming to Synapse in the near term. I certainly would, if you're using Azure Data Factory and you're happy with Azure Data Factory, I mean, that would personally be my preferred place to work, and I think it provides you with, generally there is a whole host of features that ADF has that Synapse Pipelines doesn't have. The only feature that is missing now, that given that Spark support, so the ability to run Synapse Spark jobs is something that recently came to ADF, is the support for data exfiltration protection mode, which is something that exists in Synapse and affects Synapse Pipelines. That's basically the only thing that's now not available in ADF, and I would frankly question why anybody uses DEP. It makes sense in highly regulated environments, but outside of that, it causes you a lot of difficulty for security theatre, is maybe the polite way to put it. Owen has a further question, I'm guessing.
We are enabling data exfiltration protection by default for our customers, because otherwise you're not in control what kind of data they will extract from outside. Otherwise, I know you have to go through a runtime, but that you can control it.
So the comment is that they're enabling DEP by default because it gives you a lot more control and it gives you protection. I understand that argument, but I think you can achieve those same objectives through proper CI/CD processes and proper management of where you're writing that data. And the fact that it means that you basically always have to be using the self-hosted integration runtime for all of your activities is a lot of headache. if you want that much control of your data in and out, I am not sure that like trying to control in what I would consider a traditional way is worthwhile. I'm happy to have a further discussion about this, but I guess I have fairly firm views on this, but I take that point. And DEP is something that is a requested feature for ADF and enhanced policy support. So the Azure policy support is something that is being worked on.
All right, next one is for Philip. Has no one got any dedicated pool questions? I'm kind of feeling left out. Yeah, I know, we can talk afterwards. I've got my eye on you, troublemaker. Squeeze me? So I just can't hear that from the audience. I don't know whether it just sounded like a mumble. Will serverless support some sort of indexing for faster results and less data scanning?
Indexing for
Can you repeat the question, please?
Indexing for serverless SQL pools.
Indexing for serverless SQL Pools.
Yeah.
I mean, we again the similar. Is there any easier question for me today? Now, on the serious note, the serverless SQL Pool is not managing the data, right? It's using external data. So, in terms of that, we are currently not having in a roadmap indexing.
But because it is built upon the Spark on Delta tables, you can use the order indexing or something like that. And that basically builds that sort of index for you to have, and also partitioning. So you are actually enabled to make use of the technologies that you can do when getting that data in there to speed up your queries. But as it's not an actual managed table that you get, indexes will not be there. Right?
Correct. Thank you.
All right. Should we do... Yeah, but this one's from Andy Cutler. Is this the most important one? No. Okay. Do we transform? Oh, sorry. No. Ability to... Wait a minute, we've already done, these are all, okay, when will identity columns in Spark be introduced? That's from Graham Cash.
Identity columns in Spark.
Identity columns in Spark.
It's like in Databricks you have an identity column. In Spark,
3.3?
I think so. There's a workaround, but...
I'm not aware of any.
Nope.
Okay, joke. David Moss is asking, the ability to read Delta files is going to be incorporated into other tools, such as lookup activity within pipelines and ADF?
Can you repeat
Can you
that?
read Delta Lake files in pipelines?
Reading Delta Lake files in pipelines.
So you have to use mapping data flows to do that at the moment.
There's another way. You can use a copy data task and use serverless as a source.
True. But you can't then write to Delta. The only way to write to Delta is using some form of Spark engine, which gets back to the sort of Spark startup time. It doesn't matter whether you're doing that through mapping data flows or Synapse Spark, you're still going to experience that startup time.
And you can now, if you've built them in the lake, you've got your workspace DB in your Synapse data flow. So if you have them created, you can actually read from them, but you cannot write to them. So you still have to format it to Delta when you're going to write it.
Cool. We've got a question from Matthias. He says, I've seen a few cases that Synapse can be used to consume data from the gold layer, and I assume he's meaning serverless, but I'm guessing. Is this a good approach or a best practice?
To consume through serverless.
Well, it just says Synapse, so I'm assuming serverless.
Which one? Sorry.
So consuming data from the gold layer depends on what your reporting needs are. So let's say you've got a client that is, and you've got a report, and you constantly want to refresh the data, and you constantly want to query that latest data in a direct query. You need some sort of a managed table. Then dedicated SQL pools, or if the volume is lower, a SQLDB will be handy to actually do that. If you are importing or having a hybrid mode, then we generally suggest to use serverless SQL pools, because that way you can actually import a large bit of the data based upon your lake, and it's only the latest data that you're going to get, so the smaller bits of data.
I mean, it's... Sorry.
Yeah, as this was a question related to query, whether it is a best practice to query the gold data with Serverless SQL Pool. Am I right? I got it right? So basically, it doesn't matter what type of the source you're querying with the Serverless SQL Pool. Actually, it was initially built with the idea to query just any data, throw the data to the lake and then just query it, which assumes it's not gold, right? But over the time, we saw customers doing had very good ideas actually how to use it. So some of them are actually only serving the data from the gold layer, but some of them actually are utilizing to inspect the data for the new source system they need to incorporate into their lakehouse. And over time, they actually realized that they moved from only taking a first glance at the data with the Serverless SQL Pool, they actually managed to completely writing the source ETL queries in a Serverless SQL Pool and then just serving it further down the pipeline. Sometimes they are serving it directly into AAS or Power BI. So some of them eliminated the step in between, which may be SQLDB or not. But anyway, we saw many different cases. So not only for a gold layer. There are also like a dashboard applications that use serverless to read the data from the storage and do the aggregations. So I would say the in short answer is no, it's not limited to the gold layer only.
I would probably, I'm going to go a little bit off piste here. If the question is about like using dedicated at the end, so you've got a gold layer, so you've gone through like bronze, silver, gold, and then you load that gold data into a dedicated pool for serving, which is kind of a reference architecture that has existed on the Microsoft side. I think that's something you should be very critical in evaluating that decision, because transforming your data potentially in Spark or something else through that process and then loading it into dedicated and basically using dedicated as a serving technology, i.e. you're not doing transformation using T-SQL scripts within dedicated, I think works at certain volumes. At large scales, it works well. But for smaller scales deployments, I've seen customers go down that path. And unfortunately, what it means is that they've got a dedicated pool sitting there that is very poorly utilized. It often has a large number of just straight queries, but very little transformation, and that means actually they're, you're paying for a fair bit of CPU and RAM, and you're basically not using it to its best performance, and that's where you probably want to critically evaluate what are you trying to achieve and what's the potential cost profile and performance profile. There we go. I just trashed on dedicated a little bit.
The one question when there was dedicated pool, thanks for that, Luke.
You're very welcome.
So we've got about 10 minutes, and I thought it might be fun to do a quick fire questions from the audience, and we just do yes, no, and it depends. I haven't prepped anyone up here. I just thought it might be fun. No? Someone, pardon? Well, they can put their questions in if they're just yes, no, and it depends.
There's still a big list of questions.
Yeah, but...
Okay, you're going to read them out?
All right, go on. All right, then. Well, no, then we won't do my idea. But thanks for that. Thanks for...
A self-hosted integration runtime of Synapse does not work in a private VNet at all on a VM, while it runs seamlessly in Azure Data Factory. Same setup. Why and when is that expected to work?
I didn't read that one.
That's a really good question. No ETA. Basically, it's because the private routing of the command channel for the self-hosted integration runtime is something that is only support. Sorry. So the question is that if you put a self-hosted integration runtime in a completely closed-off VNet, whether that's in Azure or whether that's in another cloud provider or on premises, and you want to privately route all of that traffic, it won't work in Synapse pipelines. That is correct. It is supported in ADF. It's because the command channel, i.e. the channel that tells the self-hosted integration runtime what data to move, the private routing of that is only supported in Azure Data Factory. I'm not aware of an ETA to fix that. See my earlier points about why ADF is great.
We should add a new hashtag, blame Luke.
So the next question is, Synapse link in Azure SQL or SQL 2022, will it be able to target data lake like Dataverse or only dedicated pool as it is currently? Full lakehouse architecture is left out of the loop right now.
Mark?
Repeat question.
Yes.
No microphone.
Yes. Yes. I think is the answer.
Yes.
It is B. It only goes. Thank you, lover. Right. Yeah, it only goes to dedicated pool right now, so that is just a limitation. It is what it is. You know, the future may be different.
So the next
It depends.
The next question is also for you. Why is dedicated SQL pool so expensive?
It isn't. It isn't. You're just doing it wrong. Is that the anonymous one, the one I didn't read out because, no, okay.
This is a question from Garrett.
From who?
Garrett.
Do I have to approach them later? No. It's value for money. It's if you use a Formula One car to go down to the shops, you know, then it's a very expensive car to get to the shops. You don't use it to plow fields, you use a tractor. You don't use a cat when you want a dog. You know, it's a very specific tool for a very specific job. If you use it badly, use it badly. And just scaling it up because you think it will make it better. No, optimize your code. We have lots of customers who run very small instances and it's very cost effective for them. But when something goes wrong, they don't rebuild their indexes, they don't do something they should do, normal maintenance tasks. Yes, they scale it up, it gets very expensive, and it becomes the wrong product. Or they just choose the wrong product in the first place.
I would add to that. It could be even more expensive if we didn't have the reservations.
Yeah. So that's basically buy a 3-year reservation and you save 70% on the price.
And also, you wrote a video on how to start and stop.
Oh yeah. So I wrote some code to how to auto pause it. So just if there's no activity, it will just pause it. So you know, if you leave it running and you don't use it, it costs you money to run all the time. You know, it's a very expensive if you don't use it correctly. So just use it for the right thing.
Well, will I ever be able to scale the dedicated pool without breaking all the connections?
You personally or everybody?
Will I ever? Can I scale this SQL pool without breaking the connections?
Sorry. The question was, will you be able to do online scaling in Gen 2? The answer is, we'll come back to you. It's a future problem. Right now, no, there's nothing for that.
A question that I've been having for a while.
Yeah. If we have a chat about the architecture, you'll see the challenges of why it's actually a very hard problem to solve.
Next one, from Benny. Azure Data Explorer is an exciting product. I've been trying it out lately. I'm having difficulties wrapping my SQL wired brain around the KQL. Do you have any tips to transition between these two languages?
To transition from KQL to SQL, you mean?
Yep.
From SQL to KQL.
From SQL to KQL, yes.
There are lots of cheat sheets produced by the ADX team. I think we'll be sharing some at tomorrow's session. Advertisement goes here. 2:10, I believe, 2:10 p.m. tomorrow. And what was the other question was go from SQL
to KQL. So what's an easy?
So there is also an explain statement in KQL, which you can use to translate between those two. So and also you can use SQL to query the ADX databases.
Yeah, there's a T-SQL endpoint for ADX.
Yeah.
We've got 10 minutes left.
With limitations.
With limitations.
Next question.
Next question. Apache Spark Pools Python lib install is quite uncomfortable today. Are you planning to make it easier with Maven or etc.?
I didn't hear.
So basically,
Apache Spark Pool Python lib install is quite uncomfortable today. Are you planning to make it easier with Maven?
So it's about whether installing from Spark Python libraries from Maven and etc. is going to get any easier.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. I know that it is something that has certainly been raised many times because also the number of the configuration that you set on the Spark pool can impact startup time significantly.
Will the Synapse Git integration ever support an on-prem GitLab server?
I am not aware of any plans. It is something that is being asked across GitLab, Bitbucket, but obviously supporting on-prem environments is going to add a further complexity from a networking point of view. You can do it, but it is quite difficult, to say the least. And if you do it, you largely lose a lot of the Git integration benefits in terms of branching strategies within the authoring experience. So, yeah.
The screen is working again. Where in Synapse is the best to do your data transformations by Spark notebooks or data mapping flows or SQL scripts, procedures, or in another way?
Dedicated SQL pools.
Depends on your use case.
This is more the Stijn question, I think.
So basically, it depends on your use case. Like, it depends on the developers doing it. Like, what knowledge, where's their knowledge? If you're a SQL person, you might want to start working with serverless SQL pools or with dedicated SQL pools, and it's going to make your cost of development less because it's less of a ramp up for your knowledge. If you're used to working with SSIS or something like that, you might want to look at mapping data flows and start playing around with that. If you come from a Spark background, using a Spark runtime basically allows you to make those things also a little bit easier. But also, like, what volume of data are you going to have? Like, if it's larger volumes of data, there's different choices you're going to make. If you want to make things more dynamically, there's different choices you're going to make. So, for example, making PySpark dynamics a lot easier than making mapping data flows dynamic. So it depends on a lot of factors. But you can use all of them to basically do those changes. But it depends on what you prefer on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's largely going to be driven by skill set. Like, depending on what skill set you have is probably going to drive what technology tool you're going to choose, because the cost of developers is often going to be, and the maintenance associated with that is going to be a big thing. Like, data analytics projects by nature are much more product-oriented in that they need continuous development, continuous love, because source systems change, business needs change. So if you make sure your developers are productive and successful, then that is probably the best option.
There's also a number of third-party software as a service solutions, right, which get rid of the need of having the heavy developers on SQL or Spark side. But it's not the common scenario, I believe. Mm-hmm.
5 more minutes.
So the next question, well, when will identity columns in Spark be introduced?
We already tackled that one.
Oh, sorry.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Some in the audience.
One more for Mark.
We've got a few in the audience.
Are there plans to make Synapse CI/CD experience easier? Yes. Are they? I've really dug myself into a hole here, haven't I?
Well, let's see you answer this one.
Yeah, it's something that is always trying to get better. I think some of the enhancements to the deployment approach in ADO, so you can now validate only, so that you can be doing more incremental deployments, is an enhancement. But yeah, it is a difficult process, and that parameters file that you've got to fill in instead of having global parameters is a absolute pain that I'm not aware of a solution in the short term for. Once again, see my comment why ADF is great.
In the meantime, I would advertise 2 series, or let's say two video series on the YouTube channel of Azure Synapse. One is coming from Rui Cunha, the latest one on CI/CD for Synapse. He's going to cover pretty much everything there. And the other one is a series of videos from Kevin here. So you can ask Kevin how he's doing things. What I also would suggest is to maybe, if some of your pain points are related to Synapse pipelines, there's also Kamil Nowinski. Unfortunately, Kamil is not here, but SQLplayer.net is his website, so we may also reach out to Kamil. There are some frameworks and solutions from the community as well.
Johan, you had a question?
Yeah. Mark, collection support in dedicated pools. When will they support UTF-8?
It's already there. It came out. So when will, sorry, Catherine, when will UTF-8 support come in dedicated SQL pools? It is there. It came out, it was released about 2 weeks ago. There was a blog, so it is very new. Just be careful with external tables because it doesn't work for those. Shh, don't tell anyone. Okay.
Okay.
I think we're almost up. Is there one more? Can we squeeze?
Is it really inadvisable to run a production workload in a dedicated SQL pool under 500 data warehouse units?
Yeah, I missed that completely.
Is it really inadvisable to run a production workload in dedicated SQL pools under 500 data warehouse units?
Should you be working with a workload less than 500?
How long have we got? So consider, it is an MPP system, you're buying an MPP system, and then you're running it on...
A part of an MPP.
A 500 is one machine, and a 1,000 is two machines. That's where you get the benefit of the MPP system. So if you're running it anything less than 1,000, it's a dev system, really. So, but it's very cheap to run a 100, £1.50 an hour, so yeah, I wouldn't, and I wouldn't recommend, but people have small data and they use it. So I can't discourage people, but it's a big data system. They clearly don't have big data. I'm sorry, that person. Are we?
How long?
I have one last question, and then we have done all the questions.
You're going to make us overrun and get bad feedback.
It's a break now. I'm very new to Synapse Serverless and just started developing notebooks using PySpark. What is the best set of learning resources for beginners?
For serverless?
So, the quick repeat of the question.
Synapse Espresso.
What's the best way to?
What's the best way to learn Synapse if a person is not familiar with notebooks and other stuff and serverless SQL?
Okay, so shameless marketing. It's a Synapse Espresso for sure, because all the videos are built like in
It is hidden. Go to http://aka.ms Synapse YouTube and you'll be happy. You will find everything you need.
All the videos are, I think, under 5 or 6 minutes, so you can take one a day in the pause, so you will be good. All the important topics are covered, and if you would like some hands-on learning, then I would suggest to go to learn.microsoft.com. There is a comprehensive introduction to the serverless SQL pool.
So my advice is always to land on the major website, and then you have playlists available just to jump into Synapse Espresso series. It's divided on subsets because we started to record on Spark. Oh, sorry, not on Spark. On Spark as well,
Spark,
but
dedicated,
yeah.
ML. So we're doing.
So we cover Synapse basically pretty much from every single angle point of view. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's
lots of great questions.
We've got merch and swag here. So if you want to have some merch and swag, we'll put them on the front here.
So you have to fight for it in the style of gladiators.
We should gratify our moderator as well.
And if I may ask the person who asked about the SQL package to reach out to me so we can connect with the PM who worked on that.
The Microsoft
Sorry.
as well, so if you didn't get one.
So once again, one last sentence from my team. I would say thank you to every community members, to all community members, because it's actually thanks to you that we improve the product. So all the Synapse influencers in the room, any? Hands up? Yeah, some of you, all of the MVPs, you know that. Love you, basically.